What I like about WizRule is that data integrity issues quickly show themselves, and you can waste a lot of time looking at a data file, relying on the data file, and then realizing you have a problem. So WizRule gets around a lot of those issues. It's almost like a statistician joined your audit team, but the only thing you needed to do is push one button. You're focusing on those critical deviations, and they're actually sorted that way. So you kind of work your way down the deviation report and find those issues. And I think when you do find things, you look like a bit of a star in finding it, because people sit there and go, how did they find that? It's almost impossible how they found that. And again, all you did was push really one button to get that result. I wanted to do a quick example with WizRule, and WizRule will take a data file and map all of the data fields together to really see what are the rules between these data fields. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to first open up a data file, and what I did here is I first selected Excel, and I'm just going to open up this Excel file here. This is the file we've been using, and I made a few edits to it so that WizRule would find some things. And I know that sheet 1 is the data file, so I'm going to hit OK. And it brings in my data. I'll click on the rule type. And in the rule type, what we're doing here is we're basically setting the probability of the rules. So if a rule doesn't have a 95% probability, it's just going to get rid of itself and not consider itself a rule. I mean, you could make this an 80% probability if you'd like, but I'm going to keep it at a higher level just for this example. So we have these 95 probability, 95 on the formula rules. We have to find at least 40 transactions out of the 4,821 transactions in this data file. We have to find at least 40 that meet the rule. So that's that one. And the maximum number of conditions, or maximum here, is 3. So we're not going to get into a rule that, if this and that and that and that and that, and we keep going and going and going. It's more or less just going to be contained to, if this field is this, then that field is that. If this field and that field are the same, that kind of thing. So it's only going to be 3 fields that are a part of that rule, as opposed to, or up to 3 fields, as opposed to looking at every field in that data file. So with all of this done, I'm going to keep the other options the same, and this is the beauty of WizRule. All you have to do is push one button, Issue Reports. So now that the reports have been run, we can take a look at, first off, the overview report. And I really like this one. What this does is it quickly summarizes the data fields and looks for trends just in the data itself. So in this case, we have the enterer field, and we have about 5 enterers. It gives you the number of cases, the percentages, and etc. In this case, let me take another field, invoice amount. It's only going to show you a few, that have sort of a higher percentage, and then it's going to kind of lump everything else into some of the other stratification buckets. But again, you can kind of quickly see, where does my data fall on the strata line. So next off, I'm going to jump down to the spelling report, because I find this one kind of cute. What it will do is it'll actually find, say, in a vendor number field, that this particular vendor number appeared 45 times, again, more than the rule of 40. And however, we have this one vendor number that is a deviation. So this is the deviation here, and for that deviation, we basically are showing it here, 1681513 as opposed to 1713. So it's just raising up the point. Is this something that we should be worried about? Let's go back to the rule report, and there is a lot here. I don't want, I think you can get a bit overwhelmed looking at all of these rules, but I think just starting off at the top level, we can quickly take a look at the fields we put in. We can look at things like unconditional rules, such as, if enter is this or that or that. The rule basically is these are the only enters which we saw as well in our data file. Here's another one though that's really kind of interesting is, if the vendor number is this, the enterer was KD, and that happened 295 times, so it's the probability is 98.7%. However, we had these deviations. And what you can quickly do is just highlight these deviations and select View, and you can view this deviation over here. So you can see LB entered this one. We'll view that one. LB entered that one too. So again, you can very quickly see when you have a rule like this, and it is a little odd, why is someone else entering information for that vendor when we've already had a vendor, a person entering for everything else? So again, just kind of looking through all these rules here, you can quickly scan all of them and try to look for issues. However, probably the easiest thing to do is more or less just to go to the deviation report and take a look at the deviation report to see what is a deviation per WizRule. So in taking a look at the deviations, they're basically laid out by the level of unlikelihood. So which is nice, it's kind of put at this higher level. However, some of the rules may be a little more complex, and may be a little bit beyond what you want to take a look at. So, but again, I mean, we could take a look at this one here. We say if the invoice date is between 523 and 3610, the invoice amount is between this value, so the average is 165, and then if these are all this true, then x2 is between these values here, or an average of 334. What's interesting here is x2 is 0, whereas invoice amount is 108. So you may be asking, what is x2? And I can kind of scroll over here to deviation number 5, so you can see this as well. X2 is something I put in. I actually multiplied column, or column B in this case, the invoice amount field. I multiplied that by 2, and that gave me X2. And what's interesting is that rule, again, exists in almost every case. So invoice amount times 2 equals X2. However, there were 3 deviations. Here's one of the worst ones, where I have $100,000 posted in X2, but the invoice amount is $3710. And I did this purposely so that we can have the test show this. And I added another, in this case $10,000. When the invoice amount was $3095, it should be about $6,000 or $7,000. Here's another one. So this is a really good example, in my opinion, of showing you the deviation, where you have a formula rule, and then WizRule is actually calculating the the deviation from that formula rule. So wanted to again walk you through all of these, but what you can do is kind of scroll down and notice my rule probability is still 98%. I mean, the lowest one here, I believe, should be around, it should be higher than 95%, because that's what we set. And again, the lowest one we're finding with deviations is 97.6%. So, and again, this is interesting. I mean, if vendor number is between 1681500, the invoice amount is between this negative 9030 and $20.62. I mean, it happens 123 times. Probability is 97.6%. But yet I have this one item where it's 2,303 showing up. So again, very interesting to take a look at. And what I find is that WizRule can find quite a bit of information in your data that you just never knew was there. And these types of deviations are very hard to find unless you're running multiple types of analysis on each field in your data. What WizRule does is it kind of does all of that rule analysis and all of that deviation analysis so that you can get a final result of only those deviations that are, again, where the rule's probability is 95% or greater, yet we still have a deviation on that rule. WizRule has a unique focus, and so does WizSame. And WizSame has this unique focus of duplicate testing and matching 2 files together. And the goal of this is to do more of an identical match, which a lot of tools can do, but also a fuzzy match. And it presents it in a very nice format so that you can make some identification of the duplication and decide what you want to do from there. You can actually change the degree of matching, so you can have it be pretty much identical, or you can change it to whatever you'd like. And you can also cut down on the final set of duplicates or matched items by applying conditions to the list. It also has a synonym directory or dictionary that you can change. So NY is New York, RD is road. It'll actually make that change to the data as it's going to see if that helps in doing any of the matching. So it's a really interesting product. Again, very unique focus. Taking a look at the WizSame screen, very similar to WizRule, has a very simple format. What we're going to do is open up an Excel file, the invoices file in this case, and I'm just going to open up this one item there. And again, you have options here that you can set. You have some advanced features. You could set value conditions such as, greater than a certain amount or only in this department, etc. I'm only going to search within the basic data, so it's going to do more of a duplicate checking. But you do have the ability of putting a second data source in here, and then that would do more of a fuzzy matching, such as for your vendor to employee. But again, just for today, keeping it simple. I'm going to click on the Issue Report button. Again, one button kind of gets you all the answers, is doing its calculations. And within just a few seconds here, we're able to get a list of not only identical but also fuzzy matches. So take a look here. We have the best sets of matches are presented first, and you can see all of these items match, and that's why the green is there. And the format of this is quite nice, where you could see the actual record numbers and you can kind of align things. But yet this is where it's fuzzy. The invoice date is only off by 2. So then you can continue through. This is a full match. These are 2 fuzzy matches here, where now the invoice number in this case is 13882. This is 13828. So it is one matched off, whereas the invoice date 24 versus 25, again, just a fuzzy match. So it's a really interesting product and allows you very, very quickly to see a lot of direct duplicates as well as fuzzy duplicates, which then can be exported to any application you'd like so that you can do further analysis.